Welcome to another episode of Manila Sentinel. As promised, I'm here to talk about an update on my everyday carry system for the month of January. For those who are quite familiar with the channel, they would know that when I say everyday carry, I mean everyday carry. But this time around, I will talk about some of the layers in my everyday carry system that I will have on me on an intermittent basis or depending on where I am and what I'm doing. But I can safely say that I have a permanent system on me that's almost not negotiable, that's always on me everywhere, with very few exceptions, depending on what kind of restrictions that I encounter. Take note that within this particular everyday carry system, I will still talk about my 1 is 1 principle, which I strictly adhere to in the sense that you will see no redundancies in terms of the components that I carry or the tools that I carry, simply because I commute on a daily basis, and as much as possible I'd like to have everything inside my pockets and not stashed in a bag or a backpack. Now, as a survivalist and readiness advocate, I realize the fact that whatever you have on you, whatever you have in your pockets, whenever you leave the house, might just be everything you will ever have in the world. And I've always preached this particular principle, this particular philosophy. I try to make sure that every time I get out of the house, I have at least something to cut with and something to start a fire with, which is usually disposable lighter. In my younger days, I used to love carrying Zippos, but unfortunately, Zippos, as anyone who's ever carried a Zippo will know, that these things hardly ever work when you need them to. So it's not a first time every time thing, which is why I hardly ever carry it. Everything you have on you when you get out of the house, when you go out, might be everything you have in the world in case of an untimely or unexpected SHTF scenario or any common emergency might happen. There might not be a way to go back home or to get to where you're going, and there is always that possibility of losing your bag or your backpack, which is why what we'll be talking about in this particular video are the stuff that are in my pockets at any given time. And I put a premium on stuff that I put in my pockets simply because there's always that possibility that I can't have the bag or man purse on me all the time, or I can't have my survival backpack on me every time. So all I'm going to be stuck with are the stuff that are in my pockets at any given time, and it's almost a 24/7 thing. The only time that I actually take these things out of my pocket is when I go to bed. And generally speaking, even when I'm around the house, I'd have something on me as my everyday carry system. So now let's talk about this particular set, which is what I call my absolute permanent everyday carry system. As you can see, I use a pocket slip which doubles as a wallet to organize most of the small stuff that I have, because I don't want to fish things out of my pocket if in case I need anything. And in this particular slip on the outside, you can see I have my Lumentop Tool AAA flashlight, the Victorinox Classic SD in ALOX, a small ballpoint pen which also has a spare tube of ink, a small hank of paracord, which is actually Kevlar cord. I have with me a disposable lighter which has a paracord stopper, so this just prevents the unnecessary release of butane gas from the lighter. So if in case I really need it, I'll have it ready to go. On the inside of the pouch is the wallet part, where I have a notebook and most of my plastic. And lastly, I have a small boo-boo kit within the pouch. And of course, it goes without saying that with my Victorinox waiter, which is practically my favorite EDC Victorinox knife. Aside from having a main blade, the very useful combo tool, the corkscrew, in which I attached the small micro screwdriver. Within the corkscrew itself is a tiny magnet and the Victorinox straight pin. So, as an everyday carry item or as an everyday carry knife, the Victorinox waiter has a lot of what I already need. And if I needed a pair of scissors, then the classic SD will just about fill the bill for that. So now let's talk about the stuff that I carry to work. As everybody knows, I am employed as an emergency medical technician in a private ambulance service company. Of course, what I have in this particular system are stuff that I need for work. First of all, as an emergency medical technician, I need to have on me a pulse oximeter, a small roll of medical tape, the house keys with a Leatherman bruiser, and this small multi-tool has several functions, including, of course, a bottle opener with the capability to take a hex bit. It's thick enough to be a small pry bar. It has a flat head, could act as a scraper or prying tool, and a small indentation which allows for opening packages. But most of all, one important thing about this particular tool is the fact that it has a slot that's big enough to open an oxygen tank. So that lives in my keyring. Of course, I have a small set of pocketable trauma shears. And again, I have another slip in which I have the Bushnell T50L, I believe, forward click flashlight, which I like, and it's good for pupil checks. Knipex 125 pliers, of course, a ballpoint pen, and that's about it for the slip. Now, there are also days when I like to carry a folder with me, and that would be the Cold Steel Pro Light. Again, simply because of this particular slot. The opening hole on the Cold Steel Pro Light doubles as an oxygen cylinder wrench, which is why most of the time I would have this on me when I go out to work. Now, as an everyday carry folder, it has its downsides primarily. It's nice if you're using it because it has a solid lockup, but it's quite difficult to close. So it's mostly used as an oxygen tank wrench most of the time. And lastly, here are some stuff that I carry in a bag. They're not on my pockets. Primarily a pilot's flask, which holds my water supply, and a pair of sunglasses, and a pair of earplugs. I forgot to mention my pocket master, which is a permanent part of the bag carry. Sometimes when there's space in my pockets, I usually put that in. So as you can see, in all my everyday carry system combinations, I have just one main knife and one tinker tool, as I call it. This is because I commute a lot, I don't have my own car, and as much as possible, I'd like to have all my necessary stuff in my pockets and not separated from me, if in case I need to bail out and run off to somewhere, get out of a burning building, or something like that. That's how I practice the one is one concept, and I'm hardly ever without these things on an everyday basis. And most certainly I would have my pocket slip and the Victorinox waiter. That's a guaranteed everyday carry system for me. That's my short presentation for this episode of Manila Sentinel raw. Thank you again to all my subscribers, all those who like and interact with me in the comments. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Absabando. Make your lives emergency proof.
100, maintain runway heading, climb 3,000 feet, runway 13, clear for immediate takeoff.